Well, the consequences of the man in the White House's failed, illegal, and immoral policies are coming home to roost, and people are starting to notice. They're starting to feel it. And MAGA's bond with Trump is unraveling as fast as the economy. Just today alone, news is coming in that everything Trump has tried to do is failing. He's tried to narrow the U.S. trade gap, but it has widened. Treasury debt has hit critical limits, making government borrowing far more expensive. Beef prices are at record levels, and gas prices are nearing $4.50 a gallon. I'm Jonathan Burton, and I was a Republican my whole life up until Trump came along 10 years ago. And I view him as so dangerous to this nation that I'm happily supporting all democracy loving Democrats in this year's midterms. And that's pretty much everybody, with the exception of John Fetterman. Let's take a look at this. Key U.S. yield at 5% highlights mounting pressure in the bond market. Treasury yields crossed the critical 5% line in the sand yesterday. That makes fears about servicing the exploding U.S. debt urgent, quite urgent. Vivek Paul, chief investment strategist at BlackRock, says even before the 49% man in the White House started his war in the volatile Middle East, inflation globally wasn't slowing the way people expected. He said all signs point to higher inflation than the market has been expecting, and that's not the worst of the economic news. Take a look at this. The trade deficit growing in March. It grew. The U.S. trade gap has widened. Imports are outpacing exports. You'll remember that Trump said over and over that the whole reason he was slapping his illegal tariffs on the entire world was because they were cheating us. They were cheating us. They were cheating us because they were buying less from us than we were buying from them. Well, if you're a MAGA supporter who wants the trade deficit to go down, you should have thought twice before putting an ignorant and lawless man in the White House. Out of his ignorance, he picked a lawless method to do it. He chose tariffs, and tariffs got struck down by the Supreme Court, which happens to have a 6-3 Trump majority. So you can't blame Democrats for that. Can't blame Biden, can't blame Obama, and can't blame Hillary. But the good news is the trade deficit went up 4.4% the next month. Now, I know MAGA people will be saying, how is that a good thing? But it means American companies got back to their cheap overseas suppliers. So we'll have better and cheaper products at the store. Prices will stay down, and that should make you guys pretty happy, I would think. But there's more bad news for Trump and MAGA. Let's take a look at this one. Beef prices are near record highs, okay? Beef prices. And let me just say this. This is not entirely Trump's fault. There are things he could have done better that would have made it not as bad as it is. But this has been going on for a long, long time. And but you know what happens? When you're president, you get blamed for everything. So, dear MAGA people, going into these midterms, you're going to be screaming at people, well, the beef prices weren't our fault. They weren't our fault. But no one cares. They're going to say Trump's president and I can't afford meat. And they're going to blame him, just like you blame Biden for every single thing that happened. You even blame Biden for Russia attacking Ukraine. I mean, the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. But I saw MAGA people blaming Biden uh, or blaming Russia's attack on Ukraine on Biden. How crazy is that? Anyway, because of that, your man's going to get blamed for this. Beef prices are at record highs. Smaller cattle herds, droughts, wildfires, processing plant closures, supply disruptions, they've all pushed meat prices through the roof this year. In March, the average price of ground beef in the US was $6.70 a pound for hamburger meat. And the administration's answer to this is to sic the Justice Department on the meat processing industry. They're going to look for monopolistic activity, which is funny because Trump shut down this very investigation last year. They had an investigation into that same thing last year, and Trump shut it down. But suddenly, they think that's the quick fix to high meat prices. And this will do nothing to address the things that government could actually help with, like not putting huge tariffs on foreign beef at a time when we have a cattle shortage, or not canceling Biden's drought management program that was helping Farmers make their land drought resistant. Things like that, simple, commonsensical kinds of things that the Trump administration has quashed. But in other words, just don't screw everything up. That's all you got to do. Don't screw things up. Like Iran. The war in Iran is an absolute disaster. Not only does Trump not know how to get out of it, I'm telling you something. He doesn't even know why he got us into it in the first place. He really doesn't know. He flies by the seat of his pants. If it feels good, do it. And it felt good, so he did it. I was amazed driving around yesterday to see I hadn't driven or paid attention to gas prices around me in the last week or so. Gas prices had gone from $3.99 a gallon to $4.29 a gallon in a week. 2 months ago, it was $2.67 a gallon. It's gone up 60% in 2 months. Now, I remember during COVID at one point, it hit $5 a gallon, but it only stayed there for a few days. I lived in New York then, and I didn't drive much. I didn't have to drive every day. I sometimes would go a week without driving. And I knew it hit $5 a gallon, but the next time I needed to fill up my tank a week or 2 later, it was back under 4 again. So I skipped the whole $5 a gallon thing because it went back down so quickly because we didn't have a reckless president running the country and running the world at the time. But this one, thanks to his actions, has staying power. It's been at $4 for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and instead of going down, it's steadily skyrocketing. And it's been doing that for more than 2 months now. And it's not coming down anytime soon. Even if shipping, the experts say, even if shipping in the Persian Gulf returned to normal tomorrow, it'll be a long time, well past a year, they say, which puts us well past long past the midterms, before these prices come anywhere near where they were, if ever. I'm seeing 429 where I live. So I was even more stunned today to find out that the national average today, May 5th, 2026, is $4.48 a gallon, according to AAA. Trump has failed massively on his promise to bring gas prices to below, what did he say, $2 a gallon? And if I could just remind MAGA voters of something that they may have lost sight of, the number one job of the president of the United States when it comes to the Persian Gulf is to keep the oil flowing. Keep the oil flowing. And this guy is such a genius. Iran blockades the Persian Gulf, and he says, I'm going to double blockade you. I'm going to blockade your blockade. How crazy is that? This isn't 12D chess. This is lunacy. He has massively failed in that number one responsibility, and he's throwing the whole world into turmoil. No one knows what his next move will be, and that's not 12D chess. You can call it 12D all you want. The rest of us realize it's dangerous when people around the world can't count on the United States to act rationally or the president to keep his word. Like for more than 5 minutes, he literally changes he will go do a 180 in 5 minutes sometimes. But this type of behavior is what leads to massive miscalculation. So, Russia or China or even some of our allies could make a massive miscalculation and do something really catastrophic that we would all regret. Yeah, I mean, you guys, you MAGA guys, you were all up in arms about Biden supporting Ukraine and its fight for freedom from tyranny. I can't tell you how many, literally thousands of times I saw you post that that this war in Ukraine, because of Biden's actions, were going to lead to World War III. Biden was reckless, you said. He was dangerous, but it didn't lead to World War anything, did it? And one reason it didn't is because Biden, unlike your guy who you think is all these things, Biden was resolute. He was rational. He kept his word. He did what he said he was going to do. And this comes from a lifelong Republican. I'm saying that. That's what I saw in Biden. He did what he said. I wish he'd been stronger on Ukraine. I wish he hadn't been quite so risk averse. I think he could have ended that whole thing before Trump ever took office. And I wish he had, but he didn't. But he stood by Ukraine. He never backed down. He never insulted them like this guy in the White House now. Anyway, and that's why Russia That's why Russia never escalated things under Biden. They didn't start World War III. They didn't launch nukes. But when you have a capricious man in the White House who doesn't even know his left hand from his right, quite literally, that's when things get dangerous. That's when other world leaders might get spooked into doing something we'll all regret later. And you think he knows what he's doing from one minute to the next? Then how can he contradict himself multiple times in the same day on this war? The Washington Post put together a really helpful chart detailing some of his sometimes daily contradictory positions. And let's take a look at this. It's pretty interesting. And they did a really good job on this, actually. Trump's timelines for the end of the war. Check this out. Okay, on February 28th, the war begins. And I can't tell what day this was. It's February 28th or March 1st. He says, we have projected right from the beginning 4 to 5 weeks. He said this during an address at the White House. So 4 to 5 weeks goes from this little blue dot to this darker blue oval. That's when that time period would have ended. Okay, that takes us to about April 5th, it looks like. That was a month ago. We're still in this war. Then on about March 31st, it looks like he said we'll be leaving very soon. I would say that within 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, maybe three. All right. That was at a press conference at the White House. Same day, March 31st, he said, we're finishing the job, and I think within 2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer to do the job. Okay. These two are in the same range. Oops. Sorry about that. Uh, 2 weeks, maybe three, and 2 weeks and a few days. That's about the same. But then look what he said later that day. This war is going to be over in 3 days. My prediction. He's gone from 3 weeks to 3 days in the same day. That's why you can't count on this guy. And that's not 12D chess. That doesn't make any sense. And if it's 12D chess, it didn't work because the war is still going on here a month and a half later. All right, so look at this. The end of the war. Here we go. Trump has at times suggested the conflict was nearing an end. On March 2nd, he said, this will sound like a repeat from above, but he said, we projected right from the beginning 4 to 5 weeks. Okay. Then we go down, that's March 2nd. We go down to the morning of April 1st when he says, the war is going to be over in 3 days, my prediction. Then the evening of April 1st, he says we're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And okay, then so next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to hit them extremely hard. And a week later, less than a week later, 5 days later, he says the entire country of Iran could be taken out in one night. And that night might be tomorrow night, April 7th. So what did he say on April 7th? On April 7th, he said, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. Okay. All right. 2 weeks later, he says, I think it's close to over. Yeah, I view it as very close to being over, April 15th. May 1st, 2 weeks after that. Iran can't get their act together. They don't know how to sign a non nuclear deal. They better get smart soon. He has no idea what he's doing, coming or going, right hand or left hand. He doesn't know. And here we are on May 5th, week number 10, and we're no closer to a resolution than the day this started 9.5 weeks ago, just as we're no closer to a resolution of the war against Ukraine than we were a year ago. And here we are with beef at $6.70 a pound, gas at $4.48 a gallon and climbing, Treasury yields at 5%, a war in the Persian Gulf with no exit, and a president who can't keep his story straight from one day to the next. Congratulations, MAGA. You've done a great job putting this man into office. I'd like to see your thoughts if you're MAGA or non MAGA. Either way, I'd like to see your thoughts in the comments. Do you think he'll figure out a way to end this war, or will it become a forever war? And if you think he's going to be able to end it, how do you think he'll do it? How will he bring this war in Iran to an end? All right, that's it for me. I'm Jonathan Burton. See you next time. Take care.